Okay, guys, this is going to be my review of Back to the Future Part 3. And I think by far the best thing this film does is kind of wrap up the trilogy, wrap up, the three films that are heavily interconnected. And I feel like this film is the least standalone like. Meaning, like, the way this is presented is it's very, very much Part 2 to Part 2. You know what I mean? Back to the Future 2 is not a complete film, but neither is Back to the Future Part 3. And so I heard this analogy like a long time ago, kind of how like it was like Endgame is similar to Part 2 and Part 3, where it's like Endgame is like you finish the time travel stuff, and then it would be like the equivalent of ending it there. And then the final battles, that third film. And this is that analogy started to make sense watching this film, where it's like just at the end of Back to the Future 2, you think, good, the mission's gonna be over. And then it's not. And you realize there's a whole other film left. And it was good. I think it was a good film, but it's nowhere on the level of the first Back to the Future and the second Back to the Future. And I feel like it's obviously the most least interconnected to this kind of world of Back to the Future and the characters. You know what I mean? Because I think what made kind of the first Back to the Future cool is it's like our main character is visiting his younger parents and having to save his own future. It just feels like a lot more of a personal film for the first film. And same thing with the second film, trying to save his future, trying to, save all the stuff about, um, Jennifer, and then ultimately saving his future about Biff. So it was very connected to his family. But this just felt odd because it was just like, oh, just save Doc. And it was just like a love story between Doc and this girl. And while a Tannen, the relative of Biff, wore Mad Dog Tannen was still in the film, and so there's your kind of Biff connection. And yes, his parents were still in. Well, at least his mom Lorraine was still in the film, and and a and Marty, was played an older, a Scottish version of himself. So I mean, there's still like the family connection, but it was just very minimal. Where it's like the stuff with like trying like the ending with like the train. That train sequence was a really cool sequence with the explosion. It just felt like on a high scale because like he has to get back in time, and if not, the train will blow up or fall down or So I guess you felt the stakes there. But I mean, that sequence, again, like the train sequence with them going on the train, saving Clara, that was all cool. Literally the definition of damsel in distress. But that stuff was cool. I think the stuff with War Dog or Mad Dog Tannen, whatever, was still cool to see. Murray having to square off against him, and then having the plate. That was obviously foreshadowed, but that's the point. Is like you see him sitting down, and you see him spot the metal plate, and then obviously that fight was pretty clever. But I mean, the stuff, it just felt like the least interconnected. You know what I mean? Because what I enjoyed about the other Back to the Future films is it's like the cast, like especially the first one. The first one's like you take the cast that Marty knows, his family, his father and his mother, and you throw Marty into a scenario where he kind of has to save the relationship, and it feels personal to Marty. And then you got the second film. Like once again, Biff is ruling the world, and he ruling this, at least the country, and yeah, luckiest man, which obviously knows he's not true, and has to save his family once again from that. But this film just felt odd because there never felt like that there was that many stakes. Like, yes, I know, like technically Doc died, technically there were, and then Marty was gonna die, but it just felt, I don't know, something about it felt like on such a small scale. Like the other films are on a small scale, but personal to Marty. This just felt small scale on a personal level to Marty and just in general. And I feel like if the plan was to save Doc, this film felt pointless because ultimately he never saved Doc. As in, yes, Doc never ended up dying and met the girl, he loves, but still at the same point, the point was always to get Doc back into 1985. But that never happened. So it's like, that was a whole odd. But I think it wrapped up the trilogy well with like going to Jennifer and his parents and Biff still being his kind of slave. He's kind of I don't even know what to call it. It's not a slave. He's not like a slave, but his worker and his employee, whatever. And so I feel like they nailed a lot of the ideas of wrapping up the trilogy nice, with ultimately destroying the DeLorean. But again, like the stuff with just, I mean, I like that was when the clock tower was being created. Like the key things that get, like those key things, the clock tower, the DeLorean, Doc, and Marty are interconnected, and Biff. They're all interconnected throughout the trilogy. It was just the stuff about the story. Because I thought that what would happen is they go to save Doc and they realize they have to fix other things, but really that there's nothing. Like, oh, boo-hoo, Marty would die instead. No, he's not, because if you just go back and save himself, I guess, like, the chicken stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that interconnect throughout the trilogies that I am grateful and excited for. But I just have this feeling, like, overall, the story just, I guess, doesn't feel, not complete, but just this particular film, why I say it doesn't really stand alone is because it just feels like a part 2 to Back to the Future 2. You know what I mean? But I just feel like he never really accomplished anything. Because it's like what ultimately happened was all he accomplished was getting Doc and this girl together, which was never really the A plot line. You know what I mean? The A plot line was get Doc to the future. And yes. And then suddenly the A plot line went from that to fix the DeLorean and somehow find a way to get back to the future. And it just I feel like a lot muddled, because I think the switching of the plot lines just doesn't fit as well as it did in Back to the Future 2. Whereas like Back to the Future 2, it started out just saving his son from going to jail. And then it changed, and I feel like a more organic way, from a change to that to stopping Biff from cheating using the future, with using the sports almanac and becoming, a rich woman, killing his father, all that stuff. And again, like I said, interconnected to Marty. But like Doc was never the hero. Doc was never the person he's a good character. He's a great character, yeah. But he's never our lead. He's always played second fiddle to Marty. He's always the side character. He's always the mentor character. But here, it's like they tried to give him a kind of main character arc. But they really didn't, because he was never the main character. His plotline with, this girl always felt, for me, the B plotline to Marty and getting back to the future A plotline. You know what I mean? But the only thing that was really accomplished was the B plotline. Getting Clara and Doc to get married and fall in love. Because when you think of it, the A plotline, yes, the idea of Marty getting back to the future, yes, that happened. But when you really think about it, why did he go back into the future? To save Doc. Did he? But then when it changes to saving Doc to saving himself, that just felt so sudden. And what made it even weirder was when you realize Doc's not coming back to the future. It just to me just felt so strange, because you have this idea of, okay, I'm going to go back in time to save Doc and get him out of the future and make sure that he doesn't get killed, right? But what started him on this path to save Doc was to get him to the future. But they never did that. You know what I mean? They never got Doc to go to the future. They only got him to fall in love, which is like, I just think like, so are you trying to say that the main story is just get from Marty from 1885 to 1985 because of an accident, because of a mistake, because he tried to save Doc when he realized Doc didn't even want to be saved, for the most part, It just felt a little bit odd to me, a little bit strange that what's the point of this story? What's kind of the message? Because I felt like Back to the Future 2 was just like a little side adventure that grew into a bigger adventure. And when I saw that it was a cliffhanger and Marty needed to save Doc, did he have to save Doc? And I guess I realized, yes, he ultimately would have got killed if Marty didn't save him. at the same time, that was never. I guess the point is that mission: save Doc from getting killed, and the two of you guys somehow get back to the future. That changes to Marty get back to the future. And I just think for an hour and 58-minute film, it just felt like they somewhat crammed that whole subplot of Emmett and this girl's relationship, because it's that's never part. That was the problem is that you can't I feel like the other two Back to the Future films didn't have that subplot. It was very straightforward. But this film is especially the train sequence is great. But the problem is there's two very different things going on during the train sequence. Thing number one, these are where these two storylines collide. And I guess I enjoy Doc, who's stuck in the middle. Do I go back to the future, or do I stay with Claire? So I kind of enjoy the kind of Doc being part of both kind of storylines. But you could tell that they kind of were very muffled in for the final act. Where it's okay, they go to the DeLorean, but then all of a sudden, Claire's in the mix, literally being a damsel in distress who has to just be saved. And again, like I said previously, it just felt crammed in. Because in Back to the Future 1, there was no girl Doc had to save when trying to get Marty back in time. In Back to the Future 2, there was nothing like that. There was no B plotline. There was always straightforward, go to the past or future to save this, and then come back. It was never on that difficult a level. At the very least, whatever personal stuff was interconnected, it would have to do with Marty. You know what I mean? Not Doc, who we're a lot less, I guess, invested in, or at least me. But yeah, the film is really good, but I'm just saying why I think it's probably the least of the trilogy. Where it's I'm saying a lot of the negative, but I really enjoy that kind of Western feeling. I enjoy how, they wrap up the story with the DeLorean and the clock tower and, Jennifer and their parents. And I enjoyed seeing, the different, Marty's ancestors and Biff's ancestors. And, there was a lot of, great stuff to, again, conclude and kind of wrap the trilogy all together. Stay tuned for videos coming at you.